water supply, wastewater and stormwater bylaw.
So, water supply, wastewater and stormwater bylaw, which principally applied to the peninsula more so than anywhere else, where there was a requirement to have stormwater collection. And what prompted a lot of discussion was rainwater, sorry. Yeah. What prompted a lot of discussion was really the interpretation of the word of redevelopment, where we had a number of businesses and some private property that were, in some instances, rebuilt after the earthquakes, and they didn't have provision on site, one or two of them, to actually incorporate the rainwater supply tanks. So there was a definition of redevelopment, which basically said if they were building on exactly the same footprint, they would be exempt from that regulation. It was just going to be impossible for one or two to actually comply. So the rest of it, I think, was relatively self-explanatory. That was the major bit of working with that bylaw.
Okay, Glenn, and then we'll take the...
Thanks, Vicky. I think it's more, there's an explanatory note which says it's not part of the bylaw, page 293. So it's more along the lines of dispensation exists. So if you wish to rebuild on your existing footprint, the bylaw does apply, but there is some bit of latitude there.
Right. Okay, Yanni and then Paul.
Thank you. I just want to be clear. I think I don't know if you've seen the hole that opened up in Matthews Road. So quite a big hole opened up in the middle of the road. And one of the issues is, of course, a lot of private properties having earthquake damaged and not being repaired, taking a while.
And
so in the meantime, well, the stormwater is going into those properties and then running probably maybe under the road onto neighbouring properties. My understanding previously to this bylaw is that this bylaw did not give council any right to require people to keep stormwater in a reasonable standard that mitigates the effects on neighbours or on public property. When this was drafted and came to council, I asked if it would capture that. Can you just reconfirm that this bylaw gives us the power to take action against private properties where the stormwater systems are not adequate to deal with the stormwater?
It does.
Can't talk about, of course, the specific circumstances, but in a general sense, yes, the purpose of the bylaw recognised, in particular, the changed circumstances after the earthquakes, and that, for example, in certain circumstances, the Resource Management Act or other requirements wouldn't be sufficient. So it specifically says that this bylaw is in addition to controls on stormwater imposed by the Regional Council and the City Council under the Resource Management Act, Building Act and other acts, regulations and bylaws. That's on page 298 for stormwater.
And on section 37? Is that right?
Are we looking at the relevant bit, part of the bylaw for stormwater is part 3 stormwater, which starts on page 298.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
So, and can you just tell me?
Also, if there's damage by stormwater being caused to to the council system, then there's powers under the Local Government Act 2002 in relation to damage to council infrastructure.
So, in terms of how we enforce that, so if someone complains, rings up the council calls and says, "Hey, worried about neighbour's property, my stormwater's coming onto my property, doesn't look in good shape." In terms of the page 4, which is offence and penalty, Do we have the ability to take action other than just fine? Or did we consider actually sending a letter to Remedy or doing the work ourselves and then billing? Can we do that?
There are various powers under the Local Government Act 1974. That possibly is also an issue like that with adverse effects from one neighbour onto another might be a Resource Management Act issue as well, that steps could be taken under. So there are other powers besides matters in the bylaw that
But what is,
these could be addressed.
I guess what I'm trying to understand, I really support the bylaw, but in terms of the ability to address the issue that's causing concern, how are we, what powers do we have, given that we've got huge holes opening up in roads in the hills, which is obviously really concerning and we don't want to happen. We need to have some mechanism for ensuring quite responsive matters, particularly when you think about the land mass movement areas, there might be others.
These powers, plus the powers under the Local Government Act, and Yanni's question is, apart from sending these people a fine, can we do something to actually remedy the situation?
The council could potentially take steps. I'm just trying to think. There might be, if it's considered to be an issue in terms of Building Act issues, then it might be that you can issue a notice to fix if there's something that's
Okay,
in relation to the problem that's related to Building Act issues.
Competing to answer.
If it causes
No, just a minute, Yanni. I've got David and Peter competing to answer.
A couple of things. You can do things where our system interfaces with the public, private, and you can do it where they interface with us. If it's private to private, it's common law, and basically you've got no power to intervene between private and private, because basically it's covered by legislation, and you can't set a bylaw.
We understand that. Yanni's concern if it's private with a public impact on, say, the road.
You can then eventually get them to do the work and charge it back.
You have got that power.
Recover it through the court.
Okay, but you can do it if you have to. Pete?
And the notice.
No, you can't do private to private if it's not covered by the law.
There might be powers under the Resource Management Act that could be exercised
Peter.
in that situation. But
Help us.
In bylaw generally, as well as fines, the Local Government Act allows
I just want to be clear, because the private property, my reading of the bylaw, that people on their own property have to keep their stormwater they have maintenance responsibilities. So I'm not sure it is just a civil matter. I would have thought that this bylaw does give us power where people aren't keeping stormwater in a certain condition to intervene.
you'd look at the particular facts of the situation and work out whether it's more a civil issue that should be left to be dealt with by the owners, or whether it is something that the council should intervene in. So it's a bit hard to give an answer in terms of, without a specific set of facts. But to cause a nuisance.
Having a storage or rainwater retention on a property, does that actually mitigate some of the flooding issues we get in extreme weather events? Now, the reason I'm going to ask that question is that should we not be thinking that in flood management areas, in semi-rural areas where, we have a number of runoffs and it does create quite a bit of flooding, would not that make sense to actually implement that sort of?
The supplementary water storage, rainwater tanks, is for water supply purposes. The sort of flood retention tanks that are required are of a different order. They are apparently being required already on hill slopes and in some areas. They're much bigger, and of course the idea is that they will have let water out is rather than keep it in, so that they're empty when the flood arrives. So my understanding is from our technical people is that there may be a marginal, the small supplementary water storage tanks might be a marginal assistance, but in terms of real flood mitigation, no.
This, okay, those in favour please say aye. Aye. Those opposed carried. Thank you. I'm supposed to move a resolution that the supplementary reports be included in the council